Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage North Carolina Rural Center Engagement Coordinator, Miles Kirksey.
Hello guys, I'm Miles Kirksey. I'm an engagement coordinator here at the North Carolina Rural Center. And a year ago, in this very room, I attended my very first rural assembly. I was a new hire and hadn't yet worked a single day in the office on Caria Drive, yet sitting amongst this crowd of partners, developers, leaders, and change makers, I knew that I was in the right place. I knew that I was in the right place because of the place I call home and how it shaped me into who I am today. I was born and raised in Burke County, North Carolina, and I grew up during a time when names like Henry Don and Drexel Heritage still dominated the economic landscape of my county. These manufacturers employed hundreds of men and women in Burke County, including my father. They were known worldwide and had a huge impact in my county. Now, just as in many of your rural communities across the state, Burke County was hit hard by the decline of its most dominant industry. In the early 2000s, my hometown saw plant doors close, unemployment rise, and morale drop. Now, despite an ever-changing economic landscape, the one thing that did remain steadfast in Burke County was the constant presence of dedicated, creative leadership. In 2011, I went off to college. And without fail, every time I returned home, I was greeted by a new shop, a new boutique, a new brewery that had sprouted up in a downtown that was full of new life. It wasn't long before I was bringing friends from across the country home from school to visit my cool, hip, little rural town. Now, stories like these are taking place in rural communities across this great state. And if you've had the chance to speak with me for more than a few minutes, you know how proud I am to share the story of mine. But instead of hearing more from me today, why don't we hear from some of those leaders who made that change in Burke County possible? Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the esteemed pleasure of introducing some of those key players in Burke County's revitalization. Today we'll be hearing from Alan Wood, the president and CEO of Burke Development Incorporated, a nonprofit that facilitates strategic partnerships in the region for economic expansion. You also hear from Sarah Chester and Molly Hemstreet, the co-executive directors of the Industrial Commons, an organization that operates a diverse network of social entrepreneurs and leverages assets to create an inclusive economy rooted in community and dignity. We'll also hear from Johnny Carswell, longtime chairman of the Burke County Board of Commissioners, and from what I'm also told is a certified CIA hostage negotiator. Now, Johnny may tell you that's helped him out a time or two in his many years as an elected official. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome me and joining to the stage, Alan, Sarah, Molly, and Johnny.
It's nice to hear Burke County called hip. Wow.
We actually got up with the chickens this morning to get here on time. But we do appreciate your kind invitation for us to be here with you today. We want to talk a little bit about Burke County, and we like to start off with our new tagline of all about advancing. And that's what Burke County has been doing. It's been advancing. We got together and we decided, we as the local leaders of Burke County, where did we really want to go? We had to first decide, who are we? What do we want for our county? And how do we get there? And we found out the only way that we could do that is to set aside what has happened in the past and have some vision for the future. Those seem like simplistic little goals to me, but they're really not, because there's a lot of different personalities that we had to work with. So we had to sit down at the table and decide, who are we actually going to bring to the table? What do we want to see for Burke County? Where do we want to see it go? And what do we have to offer people? And we found out that we could do that through collaboration. We don't particularly care about partnerships. Those are partnerships where you just come pat somebody on the back and everybody goes on about their way. But collaboration is when you have some skin in the game, when you put some money in the game, and when you put your thoughts and your processes out there, and you make mistakes, but it's a collaborative effort amongst everybody in your county to take you where your vision is leading you. There's a saying that the voyage of discovery is not seeing the new lands, but seeing with new eyes. And that's what we did. We opened our eyes to what Burke County had to offer. And you would say, well, what do you have to offer? Interstate 40. It runs right through the middle of Burke County. It dissects us, and we never took advantage of I-40 and the traffic that was on I-40. How do you stop that traffic? Well, we sat down there and tried to decide, how do we get the traffic to stop off of I-40 and come into Morganton? And Miles found it out. We started with downtown Morganton. We started rebuilding because they had a vision, and we changed our thought processes. You can't do what you did 20 years ago. You have to think for today, and you have to think for the future, and you have to move forward. So it was that collaborative effort that we started with. We found people like Alan Wood at BDI. We brought those to the table. We had to mend some fences. There were some hurt feelings between the county and the municipalities. Everybody was trying to do their own little thing. And it can't go that way. You can't be an I. You have to be a we. You have to be an us. You have to collaborate and move forward with the projects that you want to do. We decided that we needed jobs. How do you get those jobs? Well, the first thing we did is we hired Alan. We brought Alan Wood in as our Burke Development Inc. director. And we sat down at the table with him and we tried to decide, what are we going to do? We had to change our game plan of how we secured businesses and how we secured these companies to come in. What did we have to offer? We were never in the game before. We had never offered incentives, but you have to be in that game. You have to offer those things for those people to come here. And we were the recipient. Fortunately, when the Connected bond passed, I was invited to Raleigh to help make that announcement in Raleigh, and I found out that when we left Raleigh that day, we took home $93 million. $93 million. We took home the western campus of the North Carolina School of Science and Math. What a great catalyst for Burke County to take the western campus of the North Carolina School of Science and Math. Money for the 2 state parks, the only county that has 2 state parks. The only county that has the Linville Gorge, and nobody even realizes the Linville Gorge is Burke County. We took home money for those two state parks. We took home money for Western Piedmont Community College, and we took home money to tear down Western Youth Institution, a small prison that had been there since 1972. It's going to be brought down, and we're going to raise up a new North Carolina National Guard Training Center. What a catalyst. It just kind of fell into our laps because somebody saw that we had vision. Somebody saw that we could sit down at the table and work together with each other for the future of Burke County. We worked with our school board. Some of you that are county commissioners in here, you always hear these tales about working with your school board. We have the best rapport with any school board in this state. The School of Government invites Burke County and the Burke County School Board to come do their classes now because we decided we wanted an education for our children. We want our children to grow up, whether they want to go to college or whether they want to stay in Burke County and go into a trades business. That's what we want, and we started some programs to help do that. So we made a conscious decision that we were going to sit down at the table with our school board and work collaboratively for education. And then we brought the jobs. In the last 18 months, and Alan will talk about this, and I will miss this number, but we brought over 1,000 new jobs to Burke County. Good paying jobs. We're now in a housing shortage because we brought the people in. Our population had dropped from 90,000 to 88,000. We're now approaching 91,000 because people are ready to move back in Burke County because they see now that we have leadership, that people can set their politics aside, that people can sit at the same table, lay a problem on there, and fix it. I carry a couple of cards with me everywhere I go. It's hard to build the future if you can't see past today. It's hard to build this future if you can't see past today. It can't be like it was. It has to be different. You have to project for 20, 30, and 40 years down the road, and you have to be willing to sit up there and raise your hand and make a decision to spend the money. When I became chairman of the Burke County Board of Commissioners, we had to adjust our tax rate during a revow. We went from 52 cents to 68. 52 to 68, but we made that decision because it was the decision. It was right. It's what had to be done to make sure we could do for our children, to make sure we could do for our future, to make sure that we could sit there at the table and collaborate, but you have to have money to do it. And we made that decision. I'm still here. I got reelected. So somebody said courage. Yeah, it took a whole lot of courage. I made the vote and I snuck out the back door. But it's what you had to do. And I want to leave, before I turn it over to Sarah, I want to leave you with one more card that I carry. What you accomplish tomorrow. Think about this. What you accomplish tomorrow depends largely on the relationships that you made yesterday. What you accomplish tomorrow depends on those relationships you nurtured yesterday. So don't be afraid to nurture those relationships. Don't be afraid to talk at the table. Don't be afraid to be a leader, because that's what you are. We're all in this game together.
Great. That was inspiring, Johnny. Gosh, we're lucky to have you in Burke County. So I was working with Alan at the Economic Development Arm, and as Johnny mentioned, we were very fortunate. We were recruiting some companies and had a lot of jobs coming in, but that did start to bring its own challenges, including a need for more workers. And so we saw an opportunity to really start reaching out to our young people to educate them about the jobs that were in Burke County. And we started about 2 years ago a campaign called Work in Burke. Right from the start, we went to the students. We wanted to get them engaged, and we had I love the story, we had a really fancy marketing guru come up with several sets of logos, and we took it out to some kids, and they said, "That looks like some old man made it." And so we instantly realized we were going down the wrong track. So we backtracked, created a new logo. I love this picture because the logo has become something that students in Burke County want to wear. They put it on their cars. They love to get the t-shirts with it on there. And this was from an event we did called a construction rodeo, where we encourage a lot of our young people to think about the trades in order to support our need for housing, which you'll hear more about from Alan. So it's been a wonderful program. We are in the schools regularly doing presentations and speaking engagements. We're also out in churches, Boy Scout troops, anybody that will listen to our message. And we really target middle and high school parents, or middle and high school students and their parents, because it's often the parents that are telling them, you've got to get out, you've got to go to a 4-year school. And we're not against that, but we just want everybody to really think about their opportunities and think about the opportunities that we have right in our backyard through our community college, Western Piedmont Community College. And Johnny was talking about relationships, and what's really made this campaign work has been the relationships with the school system and with the community college. Their ties are so deep, they are actually sharing staff now, which I just think is such a neat concept. You know, organizations have very ingrained cultures and ways of doing things, and so our superintendent and the president of our community college came together and said, let's actually start sharing staff back and forth so they can be in both institutions and understand both institutions. So it's been a wonderful campaign, a lot of great collaboration, and we were about 1.5 years in when I was in a school doing a presentation with some high school students, and we talk obviously about the trades. We also talk about opportunities in healthcare and manufacturing, and I was really talking up manufacturing to a group of high school students. And one of them raised their hand. I think I was about 3 slides into my 10 slides, and he said, both of my parents work in manufacturing, and they say it sucks. And I was like, okay. So I'm gonna turn my PowerPoint slide off now. But I realized then that we had more work to do. So I think you'll see one of our themes in Burke County is that if there's a problem we see, we're gonna try to tackle it. And I saw that this was a problem, that these young people were being encouraged to go work in these factories where the work environment was not matching up with where they wanted to be or what their expectations were. And so we worked to start something called worker committees. So we are going into manufacturing companies, bringing together groups of 8 to 10 frontline workers and helping them think about how to improve the culture of the company and their work life in that manufacturing company. It's been an amazing experience, and we've learned a lot from the workers on the plant floor about what they want to see for the future of work in Burke County. And BDI partnered with this organization, the Industrial Commons, to carry out that work. And Molly and I co-founded the Industrial Commons in 2015. And so I've now switched from BDI over to the Industrial Commons full-time, and Molly's going to tell you a little bit more about the work that we're doing there.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So I'm Molly Hemstreet, and like Miles and Sarah, Johnny, I was born and raised in Burke County too, grew up there, had the opportunity to leave and the true desire to come back. So as Miles was describing, we also grew up when Burke County was, I think, at like 17% unemployment. We had lost furniture, we had lost tobacco. There was, I think, 40,000 jobs lost in our metropolitan statistical area. So I became really driven by this question, well, can we organize our own work? So I think we talk a lot about recruitment, and what has been so beautiful about this collaboration too is just starting our own companies. And as I was starting a company coming back, there was one group of people that would help me, and that was BDI. And they said yes, because I came to them and I said, I'm going to start a company. It's going to be in textiles. And everybody's like, whoa, let's not do that. It's going to be completely sustainable. We're going to do all recycled goods. Well, that was a little bit crazy too. And the employees are going to own it. Well, that was even crazier. And so the one group that would help me was BDI. And that's been about 8 years ago. We started with one sewing machine, sewing all sustainable production. We now have 50 workers. We just bought with cash through what we'd saved at the Self-Help Credit Union, a 30,000 square foot plant. And that was just one project that, along with recruiting, we're also growing businesses, and growing businesses that are a lot outside of the box. And we're also really looking at those businesses that we can grow that are putting people at the forefront, not just saying we're going to be in a lot of these small communities where there's one or two people that own all the assets. We're really looking at how does that get flipped on its head, and how do those workers have a seat at the table, whether they're in a worker committee, whether they're an employee at their plant that we're growing, maybe they're an ESOP, the largest employer in our county, Valdez Weavers, is an ESOP. So there are all these ways in which we're thinking about how we're really going to root wealth. Which, yes, Janet, wherever Janet is, and if you went to Janet's talk, she's always talking about rooting wealth. You've given us that. Thank you, Janet. You've been up there with us from the very beginning. So that was great. So this is Walter. He's one of the employee owners at our company Opportunity Threads. He's an owner of a company. He's a leader in our community. He's running his PTO. He's running his children's soccer camps. He's got an IRA. He's bought a house through the Self-Help Credit Union. So this is just another example of how we're collaborating to lift folks up. But we didn't want to just be this anomaly out there. We wanted to recognize all the small companies that are out there and the resurgence of textiles and furniture that's still here, because 1 in 4 people are working in manufacturing in our community. So again, we went back to BDI. And BDI came to the Rural Center, and they were the first people that gave us the grant to start the Carolina Textile District, because we really talk about being big by being small together. So there are a lot of small companies out there that are like ours that are maybe 5 to 50 to even 75 people that are doing more and more of this customized work that's out there. So we put together a network through a flexible manufacturing network, a value chain. Again, thank you, Janet. A value chain network. And this has really grown. And I think this is a wonderful picture of just how our small communities in manufacture are coming together to still maintain their own individual identities, but work together to gather markets, to work together to bring together brands. The Carolina Textile District has launched its own industrial sewing program. And so here we're small, but we're independent. If you put all our workers together, we're upwards of 300 workers in about 12 different plants that are working together, again, to breed resources into our region. And so what we realized after our flexible manufacturing network is there was a lot that we had to teach. There was a lot that we had to teach about how we were getting young people to not just feel like, oh my God, I've got to go work in manufacturing, but actually want to show up at manufacturing. We've learned a lot by working with our elected leaders. We've learned a lot about building resilient businesses that are based in wealth and based in equity and based in identity for workers. We've learned a lot about building markets, and so we've put those together under our 503(c)(3), the Industrial Commons. And a lot of what we do is we bring people into our community. This is a class we teach alongside the Manufacturing Solutions Center, which is a phenomenal research and development center that's in our region as well. And we'll bring more than 200 entrepreneurs that are learning about entrepreneurship and learning about textiles into our program. And this is just one of our phenomenal classes that we had 2 years ago. So with all these people coming into our community, that's great. It's also creating some challenges, like challenges around housing. So I'm going to pass it to Alan, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we're trying to build resiliency around with our community.
Thank you, Molly. I want to say how interrelated we are. I'm on the Industrial Commons board, and so we are constantly working together. And it's not one person, it is this entire collaboration that we have to have throughout a small community to have the assets to play together to make any of this work. So to do economic development, you basically have to have three things. You have to have the raw materials, the land, the buildings, the locations. Through the county commissioners and our municipalities, we have those. We have buildings, we have sites. We filled up a lot of those buildings and sites. We still have some to do, but they're looking at more. You have to have a pipeline of workers coming out of your school systems. We don't have that problem completely resolved, but we have a process in place to work on that. Our community college is one of the few in Western North Carolina that's actually seen their census increase this past year. That's an anomaly in a time with an expanding economy. That doesn't usually happen. They've doubled their CCP enrollment, and then next year they doubled it again. That's because of that collaboration. So from all that, as Molly alluded to, it brought another challenge to the forefront. The population started to grow, but we've only replaced 4% of our housing stock in the last 20 years. And you look at it and say, how can that be? You've got 4,200 vacant properties in Burke County, and you don't have housing sufficient for your people to live. We're at 98% occupancy on our rentals. We have a 2.6 month supply of single family homes in Burke County. Healthy in both of those is about 60%, 65% on your rental, and about a 6 month supply for your single family. We have a challenge, but rather than just throwing up our hands and saying this is too big for us to approach and have an impact on, in 2017 we convened a housing summit. It goes through, someone was talking today about bringing everybody together, putting your ideas up on the board, going through all the exercise, mapping what you have, mapping where you need to be, mapping what the challenges are, and from that point, cutting it down into manageable pieces to start dealing with that. So we had the summit. We did an assessment so we could really quantify where we were in that process. The entire time I continued to talk to our partners in this. And one of the things I wanted to do is bring on a full-time person to assist in the housing. Our county commissioners and my other funding partners funded that position this year. So now every day I have people in the community that are helping me address this challenge. We're looking at multifamily. We very well may have a nice multifamily announcement very soon. It'd be the first new multifamily in 17 years market rate in Burke County. We're identifying where we can build subdivisions. Johnny doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to be sitting down with him, creating a strategy on how we can create a public-private partnership to make that happen, because I don't think it's going to happen one without the other. We have seen an increase in our housing permits this year, but we're still not back to pre-recession numbers. When we get there, we're going to be out of lots. But the other challenge is you don't have enough subcontractors. How do you resolve that? So we're looking to do a cohort of people who are in construction trades that have the skill set but don't have the financial wherewithal to create their own business, and look to create small businesses around the construction trades to add more plumbers, electricians, masons back into our community. And we have funding partners that are interested in stepping up to the table as we make this business case. So it's a huge challenge for us. We need 3,000 units in the next 3 years. Left to our own devices, we probably would end up with about 1,000 of those. So I don't think we're going to get to 3,000. Do I think it's realistic we can get to 2? Yes. But it only happens when you dig down deep and you bring all of your partners to the table with the will to resolve these challenges. And every rural community has to identify what their challenges are, but you approach it in the same way. So it's not magic, and it's not easy, and it's not quick. But if you go through this process, you can make progress, and you can see at the end of the day the light shining where you've got it, or it's the next challenge that's popping up, one or the other. I'm not sure. So that's pretty much in the wrap up, and I think we've left a couple minutes if you have any questions.
Oh, we did well.